We adjusted the business, and the great thing about business is, if you think about it, there's different levers you can pull. It's just like an airplane throttle. So I use a lot of aviation analogy in the business, but it's no different. You can go full throttle when things are good and when you want to grow, but you can coast a little bit. You can reduce that power. You can adjust it. You can conserve fuel. You can do different things, maintain altitude, even if you have to lower the altitude, get out of the turbulence a little bit. There's different things you can do. I look at the business and the way I run the business, no different than when I'm flying an airplane. You adjust, you constantly adjust your direction. You hit some headwinds, burning some fuel, reduce the power, change your altitude. There's things that you can do to get to that destination. And we did it.
Welcome to the Founder Story Podcast, where we learn from entrepreneurs about their journey from their first inspiration to their first employee, and even the steps they took to become the powerhouses they are today. Welcome back to another episode, everyone. My name is Rick Porter. I am your host, and today we're joined by another founder to listen to his founder story. So today we have Victor DeOliveira from Discover Marble and Granite. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we have some mutual acquaintances here in the office. I think Rich Dumas was the one who put us in touch originally.
Yes. Good friend.
And
yes.
You're also friends with a couple of the previous guests before. So
that is correct. Yeah.
We've traveled in the same circles for a while, but this is the first time we're able to connect. I have been told that you have a very, very, very impressive story, a great story to share, so I'm excited to hear it.
Oh, boy. No pressure.
So I'm going to tell you what I do know. So I'll tell you a little bit about Discover Marble and Granite. So leading importer, manufacturer, and installer of natural stone and quartz surfaces in New England and Florida, specializing in residential and commercial interior work through a strong network of kitchen and bath professionals. You have 4 locations, Millbury, Wareham, Wallingford, Connecticut, and Myers, Florida. Am I good so far?
Fort Myers, yeah.
All right, perfect. I thought it was interesting that you were actually featured on an episode of This Old House in 2018.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we've done several shows over the years.
Yeah, I love that show for a couple of reasons. One, I love fixing up my own house, so I learn all the DIY tricks, but I also hate that show because it shows you the right way to do it, and I never follow the right way to do it. So I'm excited to hear this. So, I've kind of for our listeners, set the stage, give a little bit about what we do.
Sure.
But take us back to the beginning. How in the world did you get into this industry? How did it all start?
That's a great question. Well, basically it had nothing to do with stone or business. My past life is commercial aviation. So that's what I went to school for. My passion, my dream was always to fly big jets internationally, work for the airlines. Got my way through flight school, commercial, pilot, flight instructor. And my first day on the job was the Monday after Mother's Day, 2001. My last day on the job was 9/11 that year. Wow. So this is going back to 2001. Had a 6-month-old baby, and not recently married, but had been married for about 3 or 4 years, so starting a family. And I think, it's just the need to survive that, that horrible event that obviously we know, but also the airline industry took a huge, huge hit.
Sure.
And along with that, a lot of professionals, a lot of pilots that I went to school with, those guys got laid off, and there wasn't any work anywhere around for months, if not years after that. So sitting in my mother's dining room table one night having dinner with the family, and my brother-in-law and sister were there, and he was a fabricator. He hands-on guy, worked with stone, and so we're having this conversation. Said, "Look, I can do anything. I just got to get through maybe 6 months or a year before the airline business comes back. I can go out and sell this. I can bring business as long as you can make it." He says, "Yeah, heck, I can make it. Just go out and get the business." So that was probably late September that year. On December 4th, we incorporated the company. So it'll be 20 years coming up this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been a long journey and a good one and very rewarding one because it's a family business. So my wife, Christina, has been in the business literally from day one. So has my sister, obviously my brother-in-law. They're the lucky ones, so they live in Florida. They run the Fort Myers location. Somehow we ended up getting stuck. Somehow we ended up here in New England, but we love it here.
So can I ask a question? Sure. So he's a fabricator,
right?
And obviously, I know at the end of the day, we're talking stone and marble and granite and stuff like that. Was that it from the very beginning as well? I mean, what was he fabricating back then?
It was actually he worked with stone. Okay. So he was working for a company, just in the shop, just doing regular stuff, and I just, again, it's one of those things. I think the business part of it, I thought at least at the time that I could run it, I could build it. Little did I know what it was going to take, but as long as I knew that we could deliver the product part of it was the piece that I was missing.
Yeah.
I thought about a business. I thought about different business ideas. I knew I could sell, but I didn't have a product or something that I could actually deliver.
Sure.
And Stone, actually, because of him and because of the connections we had, it was the link, the missing piece that once we had that, I said, well, this is it. I'm just going to go out and sell and build this thing. And
sure.
20 years later, we're close to 200 employees, just short of 200 now, and 4 different locations.
Unbelievable. So, he's fabricating stone, right? And in my mind, I'm thinking kitchen countertops, bathroom countertops, and that kind of thing. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you go out and you start selling, right? You're coming from commercial airlines, and sure, you have a great personality, but how did you sell? I mean, are we talking knocking on doors?
Yeah. So we're a B2B business. So we cater to the kitchen and bath industry in general, contractors, builders, remodelers, you name it. So basically what early on, I recognized a need in the industry. They needed a company that could do business with, that were loyal to them, meaning we weren't going to go out and start marketing directly to customers, homeowners, and get into that conflict. So we decided to stay strictly wholesale, which in the industry at the time was just unheard of. Everybody, I mean, to this day, 99% of the companies out there, they're open to the public. We decided, no, we weren't going to do it. We're going to be loyal to the dealers, and hopefully they'll stay loyal to us. And they did. The business has obviously evolved over the years, but that was the foundation of the business, is just truly stay loyal to K&B, to our designers. And hopefully we gain that business, that loyalty back in the amount of business. And they've been great over the years, and probably 90, if not more % of the original customers that we started with, they're still a customer to this day.
No kidding. So when you first start going out, you're connecting with these installers, these businesses on the kitchen and bath side. Was it, overnight, everybody you called, they started buying from you, or?
One thing about a business is there's a long sales cycle.
You mean there's no such thing as an overnight success?
There's no, it's hustle, man. It's getting out there and showing up. And we've been, I always tell my sales, especially the new ones that are starting, because it can be very, very frustrating at times, because that cycle may take 6 months, may take a year before you land the customer. Some of our best customers took 2+ years to become a customer.
Yeah.
We're still working on some for over 5 years, and we may get 10 or 20% of their business, but slowly they eventually, that flips. We get 80% of their business, if not close to 100%. But it's a process. It's been a process all along. And then even as we grow, the issue too is that we never know when those customers, you could have a customer that could give you $1 million worth of business. You could have a $20,000 a year customer, and we treat everybody the same, and we love everybody the same. But you never know when that big customer turns into a powerhouse within your organization. And because we got to deliver, we got to manufacture, that's when we run into problems. So gauging how fast we can grow initially was always an issue. We're in our 4th location, meaning 4th building. We kept moving over the years because we kept outgrowing our facilities. So that was a struggle in the beginning, trying to gauge the amount of business coming in, to the amount of investments in equipment, people. That was always a fun thing to do, but a very difficult
Stressful
thing to do.
time.
It's stressful, yeah.
Yeah, if we can, let's talk about that for a second. So you get started, right? Family-owned business. You got a fabricator. You got somebody on the sales side, and you're reaching out to these businesses. When you first got started, I know you're on your 4th location now, but where was that first location? I mean,
So our first location was a small little building in Sutton, Mass, right off of 146.
Okay.
So not too far from our current location, 2 or 3 miles. So we've always been in that same area. So it's a small building, very little money, by the way. I didn't mention that.
That's my next question. So don't worry, we're getting there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. You got to get very creative in the beginning. But so we only had 2,500 square feet. We outgrew that location probably in 6 months.
Yeah.
Timing is everything. So I think after 9/11, one of the things that happened, and we're seeing the same thing now with this pandemic, is that people just start investing in their homes, kitchens and new houses. And then that set up that whole real estate boom from the early 2000s all the way through 2008. So timing, I think we just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and obviously with the right product, because stone countertops was really the thing. There was a big change in that industry, going from your laminates, your resin type based countertops to natural stone.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine you got 2 issues with that first building, right? One, in my mind, and tell me if I'm wrong, you need a lot of space for inventory.
Yes.
And then the second part is, it seems like very expensive equipment in order to fabricate and cut the stone and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So how'd you make that all work? You just
so I went from just being broke, trying to start a new career and starting this business. I went from just not having money to just having a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And the worst type of debt, which was family and friends, right?
Okay.
So I owed, I believe, $10,000 to my mother-in-law, $15,000 to the sister-in-law, and so forth. I mean, I think I was $60,000 to $80,000 in debt without even cutting our first piece of granite.
Sure.
Just to try to get some equipment in, some inventory in. So, and we made it happen. Within probably less than 12 months, we paid everybody back.
Wow.
I mean, I was taking just barely enough to survive, obviously. I just wanted to pay everyone back. They were all family and friends. I wanted to look them in the face. You pretty much have nowhere to run at that point. You're burning your bridges and saying, this has got to work. I can't go back to my mother-in-law and say,
It'll be an awkward Thanksgiving.
I never really thought for a second that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to make it work regardless. I don't think there was ever a time that I said, oh boy, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
So I knew it was going to work, and we paid everybody within 12 months.
And which is unbelievable. That is so incredibly fast. So, you go out there, you start selling, you're bringing on customers, you're making money, right? Enough that you're paying all these people back. How long before you had to go and get that second location?
Only about 1.5 to 2 years later. We were looking for more space, and we found another building, probably 2.5 years, in Millbury, on Route 20, and again, this is another thing about our business that worked out pretty well. Because we're central, meaning central Mass or central New England, if you draw a radius, a 50, 60-mile radius from our location, we hit 5 major markets. Mm-hmm. We hit Boston, obviously, Providence. We go to Springfield, Hartford, Connecticut, Manchester, New Hampshire. So we've within that 1 hour, 1 hour and a half drive, we've got some major markets that we can cover. So not by design, but I call it by luck. I think in business, there's a little bit of both, right? You plan and then you design this perfect business plan, which you think it's perfect, not that it's perfect, but then there's a little bit of luck. And I think the location that we ended up in gave us a bigger market and an easier way to cover those markets.
Yeah, and definitely a bigger market. I'm interested in when you say an easier way to cover those markets. I mean, easy because you can physically deliver to those markets, but how easy was it to advertise and to market and to sell in those areas?
Very, very difficult. We're going through it, and I'll get into it later, but Connecticut, it was the first market really that we got in, being from a different state, and it was a little bit difficult to break in because everyone's like, why am I doing business with a company from Massachusetts? I got plenty of people right here in my backyard that can offer the same product. So early on, we made some good relationships, and I found that it was very difficult to scale. in that market because people just looked at us as just, we could have been from California for all they care. But, so we in 2010, we decided, look, if we're going to do this right, we better have a location here. So initially that location was just a warehouse and a showroom. And that evolved eventually into a full manufacturing facility. So today we employ just over about 30 people there. All of our offices and admin happens here in Mass. That's our headquarters. But for manufacturing and delivery, we have our own operations today down in Connecticut as well. So we're going through the same adjustments right now in New Hampshire, New York. We do have a good customer base in those areas, in those markets. And I think the direction that we're headed is exactly the same. So the process is the same. So eventually we'll have a physical location in those markets, and we're going to expand it out. We did the same thing in Florida. And we've done it a few times, so I think we can do it again.
No kidding. So you guys are manufacturing in Florida as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got a full manufacturing facility. Yeah. And it's interesting that when we started, our first piece of equipment we bought, it was this bridge saw to cut the stone. It was about $48,000. Average piece of equipment now is well over $300,000.
Oh my goodness!
So it's not easy. We're fully automated, so things have evolved and the technology has evolved. But obviously the investment, the numbers are much bigger.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. So for our listeners that are aspiring entrepreneurs, they always want to know money, right? They always want to know, how did you come up with that money originally? And you did the friends and family, and you were fortunate there, and you paid them back right away. I'm assuming we're not getting $300,000 per machine from mom or sisters and stuff like that at this point. Now, are you guys now growing, and is your growth financed through the profits of the building, or you guys have good banking relationships? How does it look like today?
So it's both, right? We do have some amazing relationships, but I think it started out, one thing that I wanted to do since day one was make sure that we did everything right. From the accounting, the back end of it, the record keeping. I knew that eventually, I obviously, for one, you don't want any problems with the IRS or anybody else, but that's, I think eventually, just like a credit rating in business, you got to have a name, you got to have a reputation. Yeah. So we aligned ourselves with the right people. From our accountant, Keith Blanchett, he's been amazing over the years.
Yeah, we know Keith.
Yeah, Keith is a great friend. So he, obviously with the relationships that he's got with different banks, when it came time to do the real first major deal where we wanted to buy a building, get a $700,000 equipment line of credit. I mean, we were going all in. And this is 2007, right before the real estate bubble burst. But we approached the bank, and we actually had 3 banks bidding on that financing, with the real estate packaged into it. We ended up doing business with a bigger bank at the time, and it worked out well. We've been with them over the last, 14 years. Yeah. Along the way, we've obviously did everything we said we were going to do. We always presented great numbers every year. I look at it, we're a private, family-owned business, but I always looked at the bank and our vendors as shareholders, that they own, when you have, accounts payables, you own a little piece of that business to somebody. And so we always looked at them as this responsibility. Hey, look, they have a piece in this, so we got to be responsible about what we do. We got to pay our bills on time. And if you do that, great things happen. People actually knock on your door and offer you money. Yeah. So, and you need that to grow, and there's no way to do it without it. So that's the thing.
Absolutely. And I do want to talk about the 2008 timeframe with the housing or mortgage bubble and housing crash and things like that. But before I do, one of the things I want to talk about is early on you mentioned family-owned business, right? It was brother-in-law. You said your wife was involved and things like that. As the business is growing and you're getting into some of these difficult decisions, especially ones related to money and financing, and you're taking on those risks, how has it been working with the family? Has it been difficult?
So I early on, I think my sister and I, and all of us, recognized that I think the easier road is if we had these 2 locations, and we each ran our separate divisions. not separately. We still consult with each other, and there's a lot of interaction. But I think because we made that move, it allowed me to take the business here to a level that I wanted to take, which I don't think her and her husband would feel comfortable with.
Sure.
Because we grew here at a very fast pace, which they had some pretty good growth in Florida, and they're a good business and solid and good sized business now. But I think there's different levels for everybody. There's different levels of comfort. And I think that's a problem with a lot of partnerships. You might have a partner who wants to go one way, while the other partner might want to pull back a little bit, and then there's conflict. So we never really had that. They were always hands off as far as my decisions and the direction that we were going to go. I was never questioned by them or even my wife. So I think the fact that they allowed me to do what I can do best, and I allow them to do what they do best. I don't get into their business. As long as things are going in the right direction, there's no need for conflict. We obviously constantly talk and adjust things, but they're minor adjustments. They're not major things that we need to fix in that relationship.
Yep.
Nowadays, we've bought, we own the company here pretty much outright, and we've kind of purchased some shares along the years where there's less involvement in the different businesses. Even though I'm still a minority partner down in Florida, there's less involvement. But we're still very well connected. Sure. Our relationship, we've never had an argument in those 20 years. And if you can say that you're in business with your family.
We're on camera here. I'm thinking, I'm calling BS, or you can't believe he's serious.
We've never. Not to say that we were always happy about what each one of us were doing, but I think it's one of those things, because we get along so well.
Yeah.
There was a lot of credit that when things were bad, we respected each other.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of good things, not just family, but there were a lot of good things in this partnership that we could respect each other enough not to get into these big arguments or these big fights that we knew could potentially hurt the business.
Sure.
So it's just like a relationship with the wife or kids. If they just take it and drain the energy out of you, that's different. But we never had that. We always added to it so that when things did go the wrong way, we gave each other some credit, and we try to work things out.
That's incredible, though. 20 years in business and having no major arguments. I can't say that about my marriage.
Yeah. Hey, it's always a work in progress, and I think that it's just the approach we took. And I think having the two separate locations and not being involved in day-to-day operations together definitely helped. Yeah. I think if we were under the same roof in the same location, I don't know if it would have lasted 20 years, quite honestly. Yeah. But the way we did things early on, it was a blessing.
That makes sense. So let's talk about it. So right now in the story and the evolution of your company, we're around that 2007, 2008 mark. And as we know, there's a major recession in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
And the housing market takes a big hit.
Yep.
I read a story that you actually decided to make some pretty big changes in there that led to some pretty significant growth.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I wish I could take the credit or have had the vision to see what was coming, right? The decisions were made based on how good things were in 06 and 07 and 05 especially. We were experiencing major growth. I mean, we were growing at least 30 to 40, 50% year over year. And so the banks wanted to give us money. We wanted to grow. And in 2007, we got quite a bit of money. And we invested that money in the right places. We were the first company to go completely digital, from the time we measure to the software to eliminating paper in the office environment. I mean, we really went digital and automated. So we bought robots. These are the robots that make cars, from Ferrari to GM to Chrysler. The same machines that are making those cars, we bought the same thing to cut stone.
Oh, God.
So they weren't, we really went all in. Now, 2008 happened, and we're like, oh boy, this is maybe it wasn't the right timing, but we adjusted the business, and the great thing about business is, if you think about it, there's different levers you can pull. You can, it's just like an airplane throttle. So I use a lot of aviation analogy in the business, but it's no different. You can go full throttle when things are good and when you want to grow, but you can coast a little bit. You can reduce that power. You can adjust it. You can conserve fuel. You can do different things, maintain altitude, even if you have to lower the altitude, get out of the turbulence a little bit. There's different things you can do. I look at the business and the way I run the business, no different than when I'm flying an airplane. You adjust, you constantly adjust your direction. You hit some headwinds, burning some fuel, reduce the power, change your altitude. There's things that you can do to get to that destination. And we did it. And 2010, 11 comes around, and all of a sudden we see some growth again. But guess what? Now we're positioned to more than double the size of the company, which we did in the next 5 years after that. If we hadn't done the investment, making the moves that we made in 2008, 2007, 2008, we wouldn't have been positioned to be in the position that we are today.
Sure.
The only reason why we were able to more than double the size of the company after 2008 is because we went all in.
Yep.
Obviously, if that decision was to be made a year later, that wouldn't be the case. And I know many of my competitors that probably took a year or two longer than I did to make that decision, and they were never able to catch up to us. They were never able to keep up. And they're half, if not less, our size today because of that. They were afraid. They didn't make the investments. We did it when we did, and we built a solid foundation for growth over the next 10 years.
Wow. I love that analogy, by the way. I've never heard that one before, but I love that analogy. It makes perfect sense. So 2010, 2011, you're doubling the size of the company over the next 5 years or so. And now here we are, several years later. You got 4 locations. Sounds like you got more coming on. And then in 2020, we hit a global pandemic.
Right.
Was it right back into that aviation seat and adjusting levers all over again?
Yes, but now I call it with higher altitude or higher investments, right? We had just built a $4 million headquarters. We had just moved in. So we moved in the last week of February last year, 2020, only to basically close the office down and move everybody remote 3 weeks later. So,
now,
oh boy, here we go.
Just to
again.
pause for a second there, right? You're one of those businesses that you can't move everybody remote, right? Someone has to be in there cutting stone and working with the robots at this point, right?
Yeah. And so we had to convince a lot of those people to stay when everyone was pretty much nervous about leaving their houses, right?
Yeah.
And coming to work. And we did have a lot of people that said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going anywhere. And they decided to take some time off, which actually worked out. We saw a little bit of a dip in business, but we didn't shut down the plant. The manufacturing part of it ran normally. We did see a month or two of that downturn. It took about until June or July until we caught up to where we should be in sales, and then growth.
That's what I was going to say. What
growth?
I feel like when everybody was stuck in their home during this pandemic, they're staring at the ugly kitchen countertops and stuff like this, and said, "Well, I'm home. I'm here. Why don't I try to get some stuff done around the house?"
Yeah, we so that's what's driving, I think, a lot of the growth. But it's hard to say. I mean, I talk to people in the industry, and nobody has the right answer. Like, what's going? Obviously, the government's they poured a lot of money into the system. Yeah. That's helping out. But I think people really got back to basics. I think people looked at their homes as this sanctuary. Where this is where we gather. This is where our friends come. This is where kitchens. Probably the kitchen countertop is where the kids do homework these days. Or they work from home and they sit on that island. And so the kitchen, especially, became this place, this sacred place in the home where everyone wants to invest money. They want, and the other thing that happened over the last 10 or 20 years that's driving some of this growth as well right now, I think, is that, especially on the countertop side of things, it became more of a fashion statement.
100%.
Almost like clothing.
Yep.
So colors now, so we don't do much natural stone these days. It's mostly quartz, so it's manufactured stone. The beauty of that is that these manufacturers can look at trends, what's trending, just like the fashion industry, and say, hey, it's whites and grays. So let's put out products that are whites and grays that people want. They don't have to go out search for the right mountain and take 2 to 3 years to bring the first block out of that mountain. By the time they actually cut the first slab, trends change.
Yeah.
They can literally produce that slab within a couple of months and have it out in the market, right?
Wow.
So they're driving these trends, and I think, where our customers would probably take about 10 to 20 years to replace a countertop, we're replacing countertops that we installed 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 3 years ago, and we're going, whoa, this is pretty unbelievable. But it's great. It's great for the industry. It's great for our business. So if you really look around your house without putting in a lot of investment, what can you replace and make it look, refreshed?
Yeah,
the look,
paint the outside, maybe.
Up to date. Yeah, you can do that. You can paint. That's the easiest one. That's probably one of the easiest projects you can do because you can do it yourself. But in your kitchen, it's either appliances last a long time. You have stainless steel appliances, they're going to look good for 10, 15 years. Cabinets will look good. You can always paint them. Yeah. But countertops is an easy way. 2 to 3 hours, in and out, you got a brand new look.
All right, so I got to pause you for a second here. I literally wrote down at the beginning of this, before we got started, I said, I got to talk to him because I got to redo my kitchen. And it's funny, you said whites and grays. I'm pretty sure that's what my wife has in mind.
Yeah.
The first thing I'm thinking is, if you're changing your countertops every 5 years, what do you do with all that old stuff? Because I know that stuff's still good. You throw it away. All right, we got to talk after because I need to do my...
It all goes in the trash. No,
wow, that's like putting on a new pair of jeans every 5 years, huh?
That's exactly what's going on. And we love it. And it's so interesting that there are colors right now that we couldn't get our hands on. 5 years ago, there wasn't enough to supply the market, and we can give it away now.
Wow.
Just because how the trends really changed. And we like that to continue. Hopefully that'll continue well into the future. So there's a lot of things driving the growth, obviously. Just the pandemic, I think, accelerated a lot of that. But we like where things are going. And the other great thing right now is that even when we look further into the future, in these days, technology especially, I don't know, you might have 6 months, a year or two before something new comes around and your business could be obsolete. So one thing that I always, I don't like to give advice, but if I were to give an advice to anybody, is find something that can outlast you, basically. A lot of times might not be sexy, might not be the thing that you're thinking of, but the great thing about our industry is that even when I look further down the future, even the latest and greatest products that are coming out require the same process, same equipment. They got these new porcelain slabs that are coming out, and they say that's the next trend in the next 10 years. Oh, great. You still need us. You still need the same equipment, the same people, the same processes to deliver that product. So we're guaranteed work for a very long time. We don't see anything in the near future or even in the long-term distant future that could potentially threaten our business.
Yeah, I love it. So, as we do look ahead at the future, it sounds like you're staying up on the trends with your manufacturers of what's going to be coming down the pipeline next and stuff like that. Other future plans. Sounds like maybe some New York locations. What's the future look like for you guys?
So the future really looks like expanding the business, and that was always one of the biggest struggles, and I think a lot of business owners go through this phase. I think about 3 or 4 years ago, I was trying to stay motivated, and you see a lot of business sort of plateau and then start this downward trend in sales and business, and then eventually crash and burn or die. It might be a slow death or whatever. But how do you stay motivated as a business owner when you've been dealing with these issues and problems and growth and money? It seems like you're always looking for ways to grow, and money, it never ends. It just gets bigger because the numbers gets bigger and bigger. And the moment you think, oh, I can breathe now, something new comes along and you got to replace a piece of equipment. But so 3 or 4 years ago, when I shifted my way of thinking, and I was basically how I did it is I started talking to some vendors and some other people that I knew that had much, much bigger business. I'm talking about $400 million, $1 billion, family business, third generation. I'm like, what keeps these people going? Like, it's hard. It's really difficult. And what I came out of that journey took about 6 months of visiting different people and talking to different business owners that did it. And they did it because it was about the people, not about them. It wasn't, oh, I want to leave this legacy, or it's about my family. It's how big of a house can I build next, or what kind of car can I drive tomorrow? They didn't do it for that reason. I found out, and going through their plants and their businesses, you could tell just by talking to their people, because they were proud. They loved to work where they worked. They talked about the ownership as almost like family. And this culture, this family culture that they developed, it's because they shifted. You know, it's no longer about what's in it for me. It's what's in it for my people. Yep. Because if you want to keep your best people long term, you better be growing. You better be offering opportunities that they grow along with you. Because eventually that young kid that you hired right out of college, eventually they're going to get married, and she's going to want to build a family, and he's going to want to buy a boat or whatever it is that he's into, but they're gonna need more income. And if you can't keep up, if your business is not growing and offering your team that opportunity to grow alongside with you, you're gonna lose some great talent. You're gonna make your job a lot harder. Yep. That's the other thing, because those individuals in our company, for example, they've been there 10 years, 15 years, 19 years from day one. Their experience, you can't buy that. You can't teach that anymore. And if they go anywhere else, how the heck am I going to do this by myself? How do you replace that person? Yeah. How am I going to do it? You know? So it's a way to keep that talent. It's a way to let them achieve their goals with you, not help you achieve your goals, but how can I help them achieve their goals? Yep. And in turn, obviously, we achieve our goals, but it's a team effort. It's a family. It's a sense of community within our company. So the moment I realized that, I came back and I said, look, we're going to grow this thing. We're going to keep going. There's no pulling back. We're not going to do it. You know, I want these people I want to see someone upgrading, you know, to a beautiful new home, custom build. I don't care what their dreams and goals may be. We're going to help them achieve it. And I believe that that's what we're doing. You know, I talked to some of the leaders within our company, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're building a new house now. They're going on their dream vacation. You know, they're starting to build a family. And it's just great to watch that and to be part of it and to know that they are here for the long term.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And I'm going to wrap it up with, now you got yourself a co-pilot in that cockpit, right?
Yeah.
These employees are going along for the ride with you. They're co-piloting it with you.
100%.
Now you're helping pulling the right levers for them as well.
We could never do it without the people. And at the end of the day, you know, I know it's a cliche, but it is about the people. Yep. And if you're in business and you think it's just about the product, you know, there's always going to be a competitor who's going to deliver probably cheaper than you. I don't think hopefully they can't deliver better than you, but they'll do it cheaper and usually the same product. Yep. We're in a commodity type of business. You know, it's very commoditized what we do. Our competition can get their hands on the raw materials that we have, the same products, and they can deliver sometimes even faster. Sure. You know, how do we make a difference? It's the service side of things. It's the quality we can put out. It's the people that we have. So we're not really in the stone countertop business. We're really, really in the people's business and just developing, growing phenomenal professional individuals that love what they do, that do it with pride every day, and the rest is you know, history.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, and
thank you.
Congratulations on 20 years.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for sharing your founder's story. And as always, in the description of the podcast, or if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put all the links to your company down below as well, both social media and websites and all that kind of stuff, so that if anyone has any questions, wants to get a hold of you, or like me and wants a new countertop, they know exactly who to go to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
We'll see the rest of you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Founder Story Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And don't forget to check out some of the other great stories.